Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Gordo Gambles, and welcome back to another full card breakdown. This time for UFCParis, we are back in Betty, we are ready to go. And we do have ourselves a very interesting card. Now, I've already filmed this video once, and then the fight just got completely switched up, so I deleted it, went back, did tape, and we're back for try number 2. Let's hope they don't mix up the fights once again, but nonetheless, we do have some fights to break down, and I'm excited to do so right here. We have ourselves 11 fights on tap, some interesting ones to say the least, and as always, we're going to be going through them from a DraftKings and a betting perspective. I'm excited to do that for you. Should be timestamped down below. Before I jump in, 2 things. Number 1, hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, and second of all, this week we will be going live Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern with a fellow Frenchman to break down this card more in depth. And come on, you got to give it to us. When we got a card in Paris and France, what better way than get the 2 French guys going? I'm hanging out with Dravi. We will be breaking down the fights from a betting perspective in detail Thursday night. So if you're catching it before then, check us out live. If you're catching it after then, you can go there for some detailed betting breakdowns. Instead, I will be doing this quicker breakdowns, more DraftKings oriented here. But don't worry, we'll still cover the betting card. What very little I have of it this week, because it is a dangerous one. With that out of the way, let's do this. We kick things off with the 6-5 Zara Fairn versus the 5-1 Jacqueline Calvacante. Wow. Wow. This kind of embodies what this card is. You have a 6-5 French fighter, Zara Fairn, versus a 5-1 prospect, Calvacante, who is the most expensive fighter on the DraftKings slate. This is an ugly slate. I probably won't have too many bets in it. It's kind of because there's a lot of matchups like this. A lot of ifs, ands, buts. I don't really know if I want to go out there and lay my hard-earned money, lay my hard-earned UFC Singapore money on something like this. So let's break this one down. The 6-5 Zara Fairn, she will have the experience edge here. She's someone who has a beautiful 0-3 record inside the octagon, facing the UFC newcomer Calvacante here, who is 5-1 making her debut. Now, Zara Fairn, someone who people love to fade. I get it. Biggest underdog on the card, and because she has these glaring holes in her game. She can be taken down. She can be controlled. She can be dominated. I mean, she was finishing the first round to Megan Anderson, to Felicia Spencer. Those aren't good look, but that is against better level of competition. Where she wants this fight, though, is on the feet. She does average 5.85 strikes landed per minute. She went out there last time against Josia Nunes with just hell on wheels early on. Attempted 90 strikes in the very first round, and she has a pretty big frame for this division to go out there and have success in doing so. Calvacante herself has a decent striking pedigree in her own right. She does like to go out there and strike, but she also likes to take it down to the ground, which isn't the best recipe if you're looking to back Zara Fairn. Now, I'm not saying she's the most dominant wrestler. She herself can be out physical. If she doesn't get the takedown, she can be hit in the feet. She's not the most defensively sound. But because of that glaring hole in Zara Fairn's takedown defense, because of that success that this younger prospect in Calvacante's been having, you have to favor in this matchup. It's just, do you want to go out there and parlay her here, making her debut against someone who, although she's losing, is putting up a decent account for herself in her recent bouts, has fought the better level of competition? Probably not. Instead, let's look at this from a DraftKings perspective, right? If Calvacante is able to get her success going, 9.4K is a hefty price tag, but she should be lower owned. She should have that ground upside, and people have gone out there against Fairn and scored very well in the past. Flip side of things, we saw Fairn go out there and land a ton of strikes, and if she's going to go out there and put a pressure-based approach to someone like Calvacante, who is greener to the UFC, who can be hit in her own right, her path to victory, 6.8, is not impossible. I mean, she went out there and scored 48 points last time in a loss to someone who I view as a much more potent striker. This has some interest as a pivot fight. Now, is this the first fight I want to target from a draft perspective? Definitely not. It's -110 to go the distance, expected to do so, especially with the unknowns here. But if you're looking for a good pivot play, if you're looking for this low ownership to win the big money here, Calvacante has the upside in the ground game and the top control. Zara Fairn is also a pretty live underdog at 6.8K, because if she wins this fight, it's going to come with high volume, lots of strikes on the feet, and we know that she is back against the wall here, going to do whatever it takes to get it done. So the pick is Calvacante here. She has the path to victory, although on DraftKings, both sides are live as contrarian plays. I don't want my money betting-wise anywhere near this one. But to get different, I will be playing a bit of this on DraftKings. Next up, 10-0 for Basharat versus the 8-2 Klitz and Rodrigues. Rodrigues making the move up to 135 after botching a few weight cuts, and it's expected, and he's doing so with a tall task here. He's someone who is supposed to face Saint-Denis, supposed to face these high-level competitors, and he's getting Basharat, who is also a high-level competitive here, and what is a pretty good matchup. Basharat's a guy who's undefeated, who has been into decision in his past few fights, but have done so with some pretty impressive stats on paper. I mean, 5.8 strikes landed per minute at a 63% accuracy, 3 takedowns landed per 15 minutes. The guy's been pretty dominant in doing so, but I don't think he's got a necessarily easy match ahead of him here. Klitz and Rodrigues, although being a super big underdog this week, is a guy who I think is very, very talented. His frame may not benefit him as much at 135, but he is a very, very good striker, very fast in the pocket, and has a pretty good offensive wrestling game himself. The problem we've seen from him is 2 things. 1, he was able to slow down, and he can be controlled. The slowing down thing isn't as much of a problem if he doesn't have to cut so much weight, but being controlled in a matchup like this where Basharat's going to be the much larger fighter, have the ability to control him on the ground, is something that is kind of scaring me. On the feet in a 15-minute kickboxing affair, I think Rodrigues can have a ton of success. A lot of power in his hands, great hand speed. I think he can cause problems for Basharat on the feet. The problem is, if there's any issues there, I think Basharat is strong enough to take Rodrigues to the clinch, take him down, and try to wear him that way. And for that reason, Basharat is the preferred side here. Do I want to go out there and parlay him at this price tag? Definitely not, because I don't see him winning by finish too often or looking to dominate any other way than control time here. But if you are relying on those takedowns at 9.2K, that is a decent path to victory. He's going to have the size advantage. I think he is going to have the offensive wrestling advantage. For that reason, at 9.2K, he is a solid option. And he is the preferred play on this side. I just mentioned some reasons why we kind of want to back Rodrigues as an underdog, but on DraftKings, if we don't see him finishing Basharat, a guy who's never been finished before, never lost before, is his volume on the feet going to be enough to score well even in a win at 7K? I'm not too sure. There are a lot more fighters who have more finishing upside than him, who have more offensive wrestling side than him, due to that lack of physicality. And because I've never seen him at 135 before, I'm going to have to pick against him here, but I do think the line is wide, more so on the free Basharat side on DraftKings. But again, not a fight I want too much involvement in on the betting line. Next up, 6-1, Nora Cornolle. Maybe. I don't even know how to pronounce that one. That's what Dravi's for on Thursday too, because even though I am French, he's a lot more Frencher than I am. All right. Je suis franco-ontarien. It's not really as good of an accent as his. But anyways, Jocelyn Edwards, 13-4. Another interesting one, because Nora here is someone who is 6-1 from France, 100% finish rate. She is someone the UFC wants to promote, whereas Jocelyn Edwards is someone who they've kind of fed to the wolves. More boring fight style, but 4-2 inside the UFC, controversy or not. She's someone who has more experience here. And I think if we're looking down to break down a fight, this is the middle fight salary-wise, and it is the closest fight in the card. And I got to agree, it's pretty simple. Jocelyn Edwards on the feet is a pretty good kickboxer. She's won 4 fights that way. She's a ton of volume, ton of pressure. I like her on the feet. The ground, not at all. Her ground game is non-existent. She can be controlled. She can be taken down. She can be dominated, just the same way Jessica Rose Clark did, Herrera Rosa did. She loses fights on the mat. Problem is she's tough enough to survive down there, and for every second it's on the feet, she's going to be winning the volume, she's going to be winning the output, and against a girl, Nora Cornolle, who has a 100% finish rate, but can be hit, doesn't have the most explosive striking. I'm kind of leaning towards the Jocelyn Edwards side here. So yes, Nora could go out there, take her down, look minus 500. I mean, really, she does have the ground skill set to cause problem for Edwards, and we've seen Edwards dominated before. But if she doesn't have the physicality to take down Edwards, there's going to be a huge step up in competition. I think she loses the speed and volume exchanges on the feet, and then Edwards can kind of cruise to a decision win due to that pace, volume, and pressure on the feet. So, gun to my head, give me Jocelyn Edwards as a winner for this one, because I do think she has more experience, more better striking here. But on DraftKings, it's Cornolle all day. 7.9K, her path to victory is takedown, 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 domination on the mat. Along with a 100% finish rate, she's someone I really want to back here on DraftKings. And even though I picked Edwards' win condition doesn't score very well. It's Cornolle's who does, and for that reason, I'll have a lot more of her on DraftKings. 7.9K, as long as she wins this fight, it's going to come with volume, it's going to come with takedowns, control time, and potentially even threaten a finish from top position there. So she's the preferred play on DraftKings for sure, and really the first underdog I'm really looking to target. Next up, 9-3 Loosa versus the 13-4-1 McKee, making his return. Skeletor here. McKee has kind of rattled off some wins in the Cage Warriors scene, and now he gets to face Loosa, someone who I've backed in the past. Big underdog bet against AJ Fletcher, and happy to see him come through there. He's back. And this seems to be a pretty fun matchup on paper, but really, it's one that I'm expecting to go to decision, right? Both these guys extremely durable. Although McKee does have a 100% finish rate, he's extremely durable in his own right, and he will have some good success in the striking here. Loosa, though, super durable. Took a beating from Jack Della Maddalena, kept walking forward. Same thing against Lazez. He can be hit, but he keeps walking forward. Good cardio, great durability. Both these guys actually have great cardio, great durability. This is expected to go all 15, and I agree. Now, if it is supposed to go all 15 minutes, who do I prefer here? Well, although they're both super durable, the guy who I think is the more potent striker, the guy who I think has more technicality on the feet, is McKee. I think he is the better striker of the two. I like his length here. I like his ability to mix it up here. And Loosa, although super tough and really pressure-oriented, can be hit, can be out volume, and can lose optics that way. I think that's the path to victory for McKee. The problem is, McKee has one glaring hole in his game, and that's takedown defense. 0% takedown defense in the UFC. Yes, to Khamzat Chimaev, so we'll kind of count that one out, but he can be taken down at will. He's lost fights that way, and Loosa, although struggling to get takedowns on paper, is someone with a ground game. He took down Jack Della Maddalena, threatened positions on the mat. Took down, controlled AJ Fletcher to win that fight there, and I think that he has the X factor here. In a 15-minute kickboxing affair, will maybe be a different story here with McKee, but the fighter with more paths, with more tools to get it done, and the guy who I think has the X factor here in the wrestling is Loosa, and for that reason, I am going to have to pick him. However, if he does leave his wrestling shoes at home, it is going to be dangerous here. DraftKings-wise, like I mentioned, McKee is live for a decent score. I mean, we've seen people land 100 or more strikes against Loosa before. McKee is very live, but more so I want to target this 8.8K salary in Loosa, who has grappling upside, who put up 123 points in his win due to those takedowns, due to that control time, and he is someone who I think has the higher ceiling of the two here, considering how durable he is, considering I see this fight going all 15, I prefer the wrestler there. So another fun matchup. I'm taking Loosa here, but again, like I mentioned, it's all due to that X factor. McKee is also very live here. Another fight I kind of want to target. Next up, 18-3 Taylor Lapilus making his return against the 8-0 Loughran. And this is a last-minute replacement. This is one that I had to revisit, refilm here, and we're more familiar with the Lapilus side. I mean, he's been in the UFC before, 3-1 record inside the UFC, has been fighting the regionals here recently, but he's back here, and he's kind of been impressive. You watch the tape, he has UFC-level wins, he has all this stuff, and that was at a younger age. Now he's making the improvements, won 6 of his last 7, and seems to be a very well-rounded prospect. Flip side of things, Loughran, if you guys can't tell, I mean, he was 9.3K on DraftKings. He was a fighter that was supposed to dominate in his matchup, 8-0 prospect. I thought he was going to dominate his matchup too, but now he goes out here and he's facing a high level of competition on short notice, different style opponent as well, and I don't really see Loughran having that same success. I thought at first, the same way he's done in his 8 wins, was he's going to use his physicality, dominate, take him down, and look to finish from top position, but now instead he's getting a guy who's super tough to take down, can mix in some offense wrestling in his own right, and who is a far superior technical striker in Lapilus. This is a tough matchup for him here, and although I think Loughran has a decent ceiling in MMA, I think he has a decent fundamental skill set, I don't think he's going to have that same physicality edge I'd want for me to back him here. DraftKings-wise, I'm not touching Loughran at 9.3K because I don't see him having that success against an experienced guy like Lapilus to outscore the Basharats, Charrieres, Calvacantes. Instead, I'm going with Lapilus here. I think that at 8.6K, we're getting a bit of a discount. I think he's going to have success not only in the striking exchanges here against a relatively unproven Loughran, but he has the ability to mix in takedowns of his own right. I think he's going to be the more physically imposing fighter, and I think he has the experience edge to win this fight. I am picking Lapilus to win. I do prefer his side on DraftKings. It is so hard to get the Loughran considering he's an underdog, and at 9.3K, I do think Lapilus wins this fight a lot of the time and gets back to his winning ways inside the UFC. Next up, 18-9-1 Morgan Charriere versus the 11-3 Manolo Zecchini. Just kidding, it's Zecchini, but I don't even know. I'm calling him Zucchini here because, this guy's got some improvement to do, let's say here. Now, this fight has stayed together, and it's one where we do have ourselves another big favorite here. Charriere, 9.1K on DraftKings, and I kind of get why. Very battle-tested guy, 18-9-1, good record that way. And a guy who I think has a pretty decent skill set. You see the 9 losses, doesn't look that well, but fought good level of competition. He has been improving, and I really like the style he has here. Add in the fact that he's going to be with the home crowd behind him, someone that they like here. I really do like Morgan Charriere to win this matchup. He's someone who I think can mix in takedowns against Zecchini here, who is let's say a weaker grappler in his own right, and a guy who has power, explosiveness, and decent cardio. Zecchini, I think, comes out early. Out of his 11 wins, 9 of them have come in the very first round. He's very explosive early on and then kind of fades down the stretch otherwise. He has been finished on the mat. He has been knocked out in the feet as well as fight goes on. If he doesn't have that early success, he tends to fade. And I think against a guy here, against Charriere, who is pretty well versed in all aspects of MMA, who does have decent cardio, and who hasn't really been finished in years, right? Only one finished loss on the record. It was a long time ago. I do see him having success here. Now, here's the red flag with Charriere is he fights really close with his opponents. A lot of split decisions, a lot of majority decisions, losses and wins in that regard. And I feel like if he doesn't fight to the best of his abilities here, Zecchini could have some success on the feet. But truly, the rightful favorite is here, Charriere. I think he has the ability to mix it up on the ground, have success on the mat here against a guy who has his deficiencies down there, but also wearing him down the stretch, get a late finish, have some success in that regard. I do like Charriere to win a lot this week. When we look at the people above him, right? I just mentioned Calvacante, good matchup on paper, but relatively unproven. Loughran is an underdog in his matchup. Basharat should have some success here if he goes to the grappling. Charriere is like a guy I'm looking to at 9.1K. I think he can have success in the grappling. I think he can get a finish later rounds. I do think he's one of my favorite fighters to win this week. And for that reason, definitely going to have some exposure to him at 9.1K. Flip side of things, I just mentioned Zecchini, all these first round finishes. He is really a GPP play, a punt play, because if he wins this fight, it's probably going to come very early on. And for that reason, I don't mind him at 7.1K, but really small portfolio of him, small percentage play, just because of how much I think Charriere wins this fight, how much you think he takes over down the stretch. Should be another fun one, but I'm taking the Frenchman. And then we get 2 Frenchmen going against each other. 12-2, William Gomis. 12-1, Ghemmouri. Now, I don't like William Gomis. I bet big on Francis Marshall, and Francis Marshall decided to take the first 2 rounds off. Gomis is someone who is a smart fighter, which isn't very entertaining, right? Like, I commend him for having a very good skill set. He has the ability to slow down fights, use his striking from range, implement takedowns when he wants to. But again, wants to slow it down, wants to do it at his pace, and will do whatever it takes to win. Unfortunately here, though, I think he gets his third win in the UFC. I think he goes undefeated here against Gane Ghemmouri just because of how smart and how well-versed Gomis is. He tailors his skill set to his opponents, right? Against Aaron's, was able to use those takedowns, control, and win that way. Against Marshall, takedown defense, keep him at range, pitter-patter from outside, and I think here he can tailor his game plan once again to beat Ghemmouri. And I think for that reason, he's interesting at 8.4K, but really not someone I can get too much confidence in, right? The guy fights at such a slow pace on the feet, although he can mix in takedowns. For that reason, I will have some exposure to him at 8.4K. Not someone I can trust at a high clip. But considering his money line and his implication in this fight, is someone I'll probably have to roster this week. Ghemmouri on this other side of things, 6.9K. I think that's more indicative of his salary here. I do think he loses this fight. Pretty high clip. He was brought in to be steamrolled by Loughran, and I think that he can be taken down here. I think he can be controlled. And I think that even if he wins this fight, it's going to come as a very slow-paced kickboxing affair against Gane Gomis, who is really durable, who does like to slow down these fights. So really a fade fight in general every time Gomis steps inside the cage, but because of the salary discrepancy, 8.4K, I'm going to look to some ownership of Gomis just in case he goes out there and decides to have a wrestle-heavy game plan. Really, though, don't know why it's on the main card. Not a big fan of it. Let's move on to this one, which I kind of am a big fan of. 18-7, Volkan Oezdemir versus the 14-2 Bogdan Guskov. What a fun fight. We have the Uzbekistan Guskov coming in here with a pretty, I don't want to say padded record, but a decent looking record. 14-2, 10 finishes in the first round, 100% finish rate. That's something you like to see, but you look at his level of competition, really, really low level. And he is going out there, he's put them on highlight reels, but he's struggling. When he finally gets that step up in competition, I mean, he's lost to a 1-1 guy, he's lost to a 33-8 guy. This guy isn't perfect, and the more you dive into it, the more you get these potential fraud vibes, right? His ground game isn't very existent. He doesn't have much volume on the feet. He doesn't take damage that well, and his cardio definitely isn't there either. So all of these tools lead me to believe that this guy has potential fraud vibes. But that being said, though, what's his path to victory here? Well, it's knocking out Time Lord Oezdemir here very early on. And I think that's definitely a possibility against a guy who has been knocked out before. Knocked out twice before. The win condition for Guskov is going to score very, very well at 7.6K. You want a bit of exposure on him. But if we dive even deeper to Oezdemir, who is he losing to? I mean, that finish loss, Daniel Cormier. Other finish loss, Anthony Smith, Jiří Procházka, right? He went to decision with Magomed Ankalaev, something that I think Guskov could never do, and he's really fighting this high level of competition. This is going to be the biggest step down for him. I do think he gets back on winning track here, although I'm not one to really want to back Oezdemir due to his lower volume, due to his reputation. It doesn't matter here. Guskov won't be able to really survive rounds 2 and 3 when the power of Oezdemir is still coming his way. I think Guskov's a bit of a fraud here. For that reason, I'm heavy on Oezdemir this week. This is one of my highest owned fights on DraftKings. 8.6K when Oezdemir wins fights, scored 122, 120, yes, 67 against Rodrigues, but when he's finishing fights, he's going very well in doing so, and I think he does so right here. Flip side of things, like I mentioned, Guskov's win condition, round 1 is early. I don't think he gets it, but if he does, very, very high ceiling for him as well. One of my favorite fights to target on DraftKings. Give me Oezdemir, give me Oezdemir to get rid of this fraud early on. And then the Twitter war of the week, the 11-1 Benoit Saint-Denis, 17-6 Thiago Moises. Another very pivotal matchups here, right? You have a guy who's streaking in Benoit Saint-Denis, huge underdog last time, favorite this time in front of his home crowd. I get it. He's someone who is just so fun to watch. Very, very explosive, very aggressive, wants to finish fights, has extreme toughness, and has the ability to have a ton of success in these matchups here. However, my first instinct when seeing this fight is, man, huge line overcorrection, right? We've seen Thiago Moises fight the best of the world. He himself is very, very talented. World champion on the mat in jiu-jitsu. Outstruck Alexander Hernandez, fought a much better level of competition. Why is this line like this? And it really leads me to want to take Thiago Moises. The problem is, Moises crumbles under pressure, doesn't have the best offensive wrestling game in his own right, willing to play on the ground, and all these things are going to say that, yeah, Benoit Saint-Denis kind of has the blueprint to beat Moises. Because Benoit Saint-Denis is not going to stop fighting. He's not going to stop going forward, and you're not really going to finish the guy. So instead, does Moises have the cardio, the willpower, the heart, the desire to go out there against Benoit Saint-Denis, stop the takedowns, maybe submit him or something, but be in there against a guy who's so pressure-oriented, so dynamic, so tough, and it's really hard for me to see that. I think Gundam ahead, I'm going to have to take Benoit Saint-Denis, and for that reason, also an amazing target on DraftKings. He fights such a high pace, right? 114 against Bonfi, 135 against Miranda, 105 against Stolze. That high-paced wrestling is going to score very well. The problem is, Moises, I think, is a better jiu-jitsu guy. I think Moises is a better technical striker. So yeah, the paths are there for Moises, and if Benoit Saint-Denis can't get him out of there, will he labor down the stretch? Who knows? All I know is that stylistically, against the guys that Moises have lost to, the Joel Alvarez's, the Beneil Dariush's, the Damir Ismagulovs, those are guys who have pressured him, who have caused him problems, and Benoit Denis is gonna pressure him for sure, gonna cause problems for that reason. Kind of gotta lean towards him though, but very, very close fight. I think the line is a bit of an overcorrection. There's still a lot of learning we have to do on Benoit Saint-Denis. If he goes out there, can't get the same takedowns, and Moises beats him on the feet, I'm not gonna be surprised here. DraftKings wise though, I want this fight. Benoit Saint-Denis 8.5K, super high ceiling. I think he goes out there super aggressive. Whereas Moises, I mean, I know I just talked about how tough Saint-Denis is, but he has a great jiu-jitsu game. I mean, submitted Costa last time out, submitted Giagos, submitted Johnson, has the opportunity to choke out Saint-Denis in what I think is his major win condition here. And considering how much people love Saint-Denis this week, decent contrarian play for me at 7.7. So I want this fight. I'm picking Benoit Saint-Denis. Super fun matchup. Co-main event, 10-1, Manon Fiorot versus the 11-5 Rose Namajunas. Thug Rose coming out here, moving up a weight class. Interesting. Let's talk about it, because really, this doesn't seem like the best matchup for her on paper. I love Rose. I'm a huge Rose fan. Can't believe she fought like last time. I'm still a fan, maybe less of one, but she's someone who I think is very, very talented, very technical, has all this stuff going for her, but now she's facing someone who is a lot more physically imposing, so she can't get off that wrestling as much, and who is just a very, very talented kickboxer in her home arena there in France. This doesn't seem like the best matchup here, and on paper, Manon Fiorot is someone who you kind of have to pick here, because she's going to have the physicality edge against Rose. I think she's the better striker at the end of her punches. I mean, in a close decision, they're going to give it to the French girl in France, but the line isn't moving. There's something we don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know how Rose fills out at 125. I know that Manon can be taken down. She can be controlled. Does Rose have the physicality to do that? I can't bank on it, but I do think for some reason this is kind of a trap, because it feels like this line's not moving. Fiorot can have success. I'm not sure. Now the question is, at 8.9K, do we want Manon Fiorot? She's landed a takedown in each one of her fights. I don't think it's smart for her to do it here. And the question is, can she outpoint Rose in a decision? Because when she's done, she scores 75, 81, 88. Not great, but she does have power. I don't see her finishing Rose, and for that reason, you kind of got to see, is that 8.9K, is her volume enough to have success here? And I lean towards no. I'd much rather have an Loosa with grappling success, an Oezdemir here, a Charriere here. Like, Fiorot doesn't really seem like the overall best DraftKings play, although I do think she wins this fight, so a very good floor here. Rose, flip side of things, I mean, we haven't seen her in a 3-round fight in a long time. I mean, last time was against Andrade, put up 62 points. I don't think it's going to be too successful for her here. So it's really hard for me to pick against Rose, considering how well-rounded she is, how many good attributes she has. But without a really physicality edge against such a powerful striker, it's hard for me to pick her at 7.3K. I am going to be cheering for her, though. I do think something about this is a trap, so I'm going to stay away from it on DraftKings, stay away from the betting line. Gun to my head, give me the French girl in Paris. But I'm really excited to see how Rose looks at 125. And the main event, 11-2, Cyril Gane, 16-3, Sergey Spivac. Wow, fun fight. Pre-tape, I'm like, damn, Sergey Spivac, why is he an underdog, right? Cyril Gane was just taken down, controlled, dominating on the mat in his last few fights, whereas Spivac he's dominating. I mean, a path towards the top, a lot of success in doing so. In his last wins, he scored 134, 135, 113. The guy's on a roll, and he's getting these finishes early. Very good takedown success. Spivac averages 5.05 takedowns for 15 minutes, 65% takedown accuracy, and even at that, 55% striking defense. He's doing what he has to do. But he's facing a guy in Gane who is a very good kickboxer, is able to stay on the outside, and who has power in his hands in his own right. When we've seen Sergey Spivac lose, it's been twice in the first round to Walt Harris and Tom Aspinall. And other than that Tabura fight, not something I can see Gane replicating here. But the question is, does Spivac have enough to get Cyril Gane out of there? Because in a 5-round event, I love Gane's cardio. I love him in front of his home crowd. I think he takes over in the striking late. So to me, it's the fight you want on DraftKings, but when it comes to picking a side, who do I take here? I think I kind of got to lean towards the grappler here in Spivac, just because he's someone you want to cheer for. He's someone who has the right momentum going into this fight, and who has the blueprint to beat a guy who was just taken down and controlled early by Cyril Gane. Now, do I want to put my money on that? Probably not, because I don't know if he has the capabilities to get Gane out of there early. And I don't know if he has the cardio to maintain it over 5 rounds either, and for that reason, it's a very close one. I think it's either Spivac early, Gane late. For that reason, 7.5K, Sergey Spivac, an amazing fight to target here. Whereas flip side, 8.7, I don't mind Gane. I think if he gets control, taking down the first couple rounds, he's going to need a ton of volume. He's going to need to go out there and fight with an urgency to get him out of there. And for that reason, a decent play on both sides. Very, very fun fight, very close one. Spivac's ceiling is so much higher on DraftKings, so I kind of want to pick him to win this fight, but really I wouldn't be surprised either way. It's also in France. I kind of want to showcase Gane. Really a toss-up, but because it's a toss-up, give me the underdog. So very, very fun fight there. Man, looking forward to it. That's going to do it for me here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Quickly, let me give you my quick picks. Close fight. I got to go Spivac and Fiorot in the first two. Those ones are flips, like coin flips though, so I don't really know where I'll end up there. And then I got to take Benoit Saint-Denis, Volkan Oezdemir, William Gomis, Morgan Charriere, Taylor Lapilus, Ange Loosa, Jocelyn Edwards, Farid Basharat, and Jacqueline Calvacante. And some fights I'm not confident in. I have 0 bets locked in so far. I don't know how many bets I'm going to get to. For that reason, I can't really talk about bets so far. But DraftKings wise, I love the Moises to Saint-Denis fight. I love the Oezdemir Guskov fight. I think Lapilus is live at 8.6 considering the salary discrepancy. Spivac, McKee, and Cornolle are the underdogs to target, whereas up top, I think Calvacante has a path, but I like Charriere. I think Loosa has a high GPP ceiling as well. There are better fights to target. I'm fading Loughran up top, fading Fiorot, fading Edwards, and fading a lot of these underdogs. Reignmakers wise, it's another tough one. I think you got to go Oezdemir, you got to go Saint-Denis, got to go Basharat, and then it comes down to a lot of close fights. You got to pick the winner of the main event, Gane or Spivac. I think you take Calvacante and bank on her upside here against Fairn. And if I were you, if you want to get different, take Cornolle. I mean, I picked Edwards to win this fight, but I think Nora scores very well in a win. Her path's there. But that's going to finally do it for me on the Plays of Fate YouTube channel. Hopefully you guys got enough tidbits, information to succeed on this slate, because it is a very tough one. Like I said, going live Thursday night with Dravi to talk some fights. It'll be in English. On pourrait parler français un peu, mais it will be in English there for you guys. I am looking forward to this fight card though. Fights nonetheless, and then next week should be a fun one as a pay-per-view. So guys, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the like button down below, show some love, and let's make some money, guys.